Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very proud to speak today on the Economic Action Plan 2013, number 2. And Mr. Speaker, I believe that the results on which our country is now coasting, economic results that are the toast of the world over, relate to an approach to government and an approach to business for which this conservative government is becoming renowned. And it goes back to what a mentor once taught me many years ago when I was running a business in a very competitive environment in Taiwan. And the lesson I learned was, may the niche be with you. That means, can you focus on something that is your calling, something that will lead you to success? And Mr. Speaker, that's what I believe this government has done. This finance minister, through over 7 successful budgets. And again, in this Budget Implementation Act, Mr. Speaker, we see the same hallmarks of success. And let's delve for a minute into what those successful results have meant for Canadians. What we've seen is the best economic results in the world. We've seen Canada's performance exceed that of all other G7 nations. We've seen, Mr. Speaker, over 1 million new jobs created since the recession began in July 2009. By far the best job creation record in the G7. And Mr. Speaker, unemployment rates are below those of the United States, the first time in 3 decades that we have witnessed such an amazing, strong performance. The International Monetary Fund and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development have both said that Canada is likely to have the strongest growth in the years ahead. And our GDP, our debt to GDP ratio, Mr. Speaker, it is by far the best in the G7. In 2012, it was 34.6%. Germany was a distant second at 52%. For the 6th straight year, the World Economic Forum has rated Canada as having the best banking system in the world. And this would amaze the clients that I dealt with in Asia when I practiced law in that part of the world. Well, Canada now has the lowest overall tax rate on new business investment in the G7. And Canadians are facing the lowest tax burden in some 50 years, Mr. Speaker. Those are the hallmarks of success and the kinds of things that we see implicit in this Budget Implementation Act. So, Mr. Speaker, may I say to people in government everywhere, if people could only follow the lead of this conservative government, may the niche be with you. Focus on what is the priority for those governed. Then we would see success everywhere. Mr. Speaker, politics is renowned to be local, and I'd like to just delve into some of the examples of these successful hallmarks as they have manifested in the riding I have the honor to represent. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, in the shipbuilding world, the Honorable Minister of Public Works and Government Services announced this month a contract to Seaspan to build 10 additional large non-combat ships for our Coast Guard in the Vancouver shipyards. This is a contract worth $3.3 billion. It's a blockbuster. It's going to create thousands of jobs, including many in the riding I represent. But Mr. Speaker, that's just the beginning of the story. It's a story that I would like to speak on for hours, not the few minutes that are allotted to me. But this conservative government has seen a shipbuilding business, which was being written off as a sunset industry, become a sunrise industry in our great country, Mr. Speaker. In addition to those thousands of high-paying jobs, we see economic development throughout the country. Industry analysts are saying that in total, the national shipbuilding strategy is going to bring some 15,000 jobs across Canada and over $2 billion in annual economic benefit over the next 30 years. Mr. Speaker, some sunrise industry. Mr. Speaker, this is one great example of may the niche be with you, how a focus on economic development and job creation is putting Canadians in good stead as we compete to create a truly international center of excellence for shipbuilding in Vancouver. Mr. Speaker, a second example of how this government's focus, its laser beam focus on the economy and jobs is creating success, is in the pulp and paper world. In the riding I represent, Howe Sound Pulp and Paper is one of the largest employers in one of the most important sectors in British Columbia. And we saw, Mr. Speaker, in 2010, a sizable amount of money invested not just in upgrading an important mill, but in what was called the Pulp and Paper Green Transformation Program, an excellent example of ensuring that the environment is the economy, a doctrine that I try to cultivate both in the riding and throughout the country, a doctrine that suggests that our resources and our economy are not at odds with one another, but instead are intertwined, something that our government grasps, and this Conservative government continues to endorse. So we've seen this specific investment in the Sunshine Coast part of the riding I represent, increasing productivity in an environmentally friendly manner. May the niche be with you. We see that again demonstrated in the pulp and paper industry. And Mr. Speaker, more and more we're seeing that in the world of the arts, this is an important economic driver. And we've seen in past budgets and directly or indirectly through the encouragement of this Budget Implementation Act, continued support by this government for the arts. And Mr. Speaker, I've seen again and again how people are thronging to the riding I represent to attend festivals. Festivals just like the two for which we announced funding in the last month, the Seashell Arts Festival and the Seashell Written Arts Festival. Two examples where our government, through a very wise use of taxpayers' dollars, is seeing those dollars leveraged over and over again by people in the arts who are in and of themselves demonstrating an international prowess that makes us the toast of the world in arts, but also creating economic development and creating jobs. Mr. Speaker, let me move from shipbuilding to the arts to fisheries, another area where our government is investing and where our government is showing that when the niche is with you, that you can indeed succeed. In the last budget, Mr. Speaker, we saw two great strides forward for fisheries. And these came very much as a result of legislators representing British Columbians and other Canadians who said that we need to reward the amazing efforts of our volunteers who are improving fisheries habitat around the country. This is not just for the fisheries, this is for jobs and this is for growth. So the Recreational Fisheries Conservation Partnership Program was created, a great program that is seeding super projects around the country. And we saw two of those projects funded in the riding I represent, projects that will enhance fisheries habitat, will encourage volunteers, and will lead directly and indirectly to jobs and economic growth. And I'm speaking, Mr. Speaker, of the Evans Creek Rewatering Project and the Tiempo Coho Restoration Project submitted by the Squamish River Watershed Society. Kudos to the Sea to Sky Fisheries Roundtable and Pacific Salmon Foundation that collaborated to make those a success. And Mr. Speaker, also, we saw in the last budget enhanced support for the Pacific Salmon Foundation, one of the best volunteer organizations in the country. Mr. Speaker, these are all examples of how the Government of Canada has continued to support and build up successful industries, not only in British Columbia, but throughout Canada. The niche is with this Conservative government, and because the government is focusing on jobs and growth, both in this Budget Implementation Act and in all of its actions, Canadians are benefiting, and we continue to be the toast of the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments?